was announced just a few moments ago. And joining us now is Marco Uko, Youth Affairs Coordinator at the National Students' Council. Thanks for making time. Are you surprised by the results of this by-elections?
Thank you so much, Trevor. First of all, my apologies for coming a bit late. You know, some of us have not been sleeping the entire night following by-election results all over up to till late 4 a.m. Now, I'm not surprised. As I've always told you before, is that we may not be the majority as the likes of Okayo and those who have been making noise around against the UDA government, but we are a very organized minority. And I want to take this opportunity to thank the Kenyan people for overwhelmingly electing all the UDA candidates who stood from Baringo, from Banisa, from Malava, to Mbeere North, and and also the latest one, Malava. It is just a reassurance and an affirmative by the Kenyan population of the trust that they still have with the UDA government. I think as I was coming through, I was also hearing the discussions around saying a bit how of my colleagues who are saying that probably the young people did not show up because they do not believe in the current regime. I think it's a diabolical duality for them to suggest that, because at the polling booth, there are candidates who are not also pro-government. I think the young people could have still showed up to vote for them. So I think this is just a demonstration of what will proximally happen in 2027, that the UDA government will still be reaffirmingly elected all across the country. However, I'll also need to say this, Trevor, perhaps as a last remark towards my preliminary remarks, is that the outcome of any election, Trevor, is determined by two things across all over. One is the amount of votes involved. Two is the level of violence that is involved. Now, normally you get that when you are a popular candidate, you need to work on the first metric, that you make sure people overwhelmingly come and vote and turn out and vote for you. But secondly, you normally get that candidates whom are on the losing end, they will always instigate and advocate for violence. I think that's why we saw the former deputy president, regarding Gachagua, making very outrageous remarks, urging young people to, whom he should have mobilized to go and vote so that they have an overwhelming win. I saw the difference between our candidate and their candidate is less than almost 300, because our candidate won by around 15,000 and theirs was also 15,000 less than 300 votes. So we just want to urge those who are on the other aisle to kindly, to be more organized around, mobilizing young people towards, elections.
So you think this will address rehearsal for 2027?
Of course, this is a rehearsal for 2027. And
for you, this is a vote of confidence in the president?
It's a vote of confidence.
Even though he wasn't on the ballot?
It's a vote of, when you vote for the UDA party, proximally you are voting for the president.
Wow.
This is the conversation. Yeah, I see that Cynthia would want to respond, but let me hear what Mokai has to say about this. Is this a vote of confidence for the president in 2027?
Trevor, we have circled around the issue of whether young people have voted or not and their responsibility in this. We start by saying that the Bible says God encourages us to test and see that God is good. So then there's an imperative that you can't, the value or taste of the pudding is in the eating. You can't say IEBC is unfair or even biased if you have not tested and failed. So if you don't vote, you don't say that the IEBC is biased. I play football, and I'm a proud sponsor of Otieno Mokaya Super Cup, which will be played at the end of this year in Naikuru, Bobasi constituency. If you realize the referee is unfair, what you do is score your goals early and score many of them, so that when the referee becomes biased, they can't score for the opponent. But if you leave everything on a balance, then it means you are giving a referee a chance to be unfair to you. So what do you do about IEBC by staying at home? Of what importance is your sleeping, partying, and nursing a hangover to this country? What do you wake up for? Maybe the drunken stupor has saved you momentarily from your problems, but do you wake up in a different country? We have to focus on our realities today and do what we can positively today that is over and beyond complaining, name throwing, and mudslinging. bad leaders are chosen by right-minded people who don't vote. And we can't be a complaining nation. I made a joke here off air, that maybe our young people, maybe the optimism we have in ourselves is either misguided or too blind to see that we might not be different. We just knew. And we might fall into the traps and trends of our forefathers and parents. Yeah. That we think in English, act in our mother tongue. That we tweet logically, but vote tribally. Until we rise above that, rise above tribal cocoons. That's why my brother is right in his assumption that anyone who voted from my backyard voted not for the candidate, but for the presidential hopeful. Anyone who tried to vote in Mbeere North was either voting for the deputy president who actually won this election, not Wamudende, but or the DCB hopeful who's Rigathi Gachagua. Anybody who voted in Western Kenya voted for either Musalia Mudavadi or the speaker, and not the candidate who is going to represent them in parliament. Then what moral authority do we have to complain about bills like the finance bill? What moral authority do we have to question a member of parliament whose ineptness we never even considered? So then he is right that this was not parliamentary, neither was it county MCA elections. They were precursors to the general election. And whatever you see goes beyond our social media polls. Because there are three kinds of lies, Trevor. There are white lies, which we tell to children to influence what they should behave, that tooth fairy puts money under their pillows. There are numbers. Those are the second kind of lies, because it depends on whose numbers you are talking about, which are statistics. They show you what the owner of the numbers want you to see. The third lie are surveys, which are so dependent on the question being asked. If I ask anyone here whether William Ruto is popular in Mbeere, or whether the opposition is popular in central Kenya, depending on who is asking the question, you'll say that is the case. If you ask whether Raila Odinga was president in 2022 in Nyanza, William Ruto will be at home saying he can't win this election. So what are we focusing on, and what is our truth? But our truth will not be in our minds. Our truth is how much sacrifice we are willing to give, and what positively are we doing over and above what has been conventional wisdom, which could be foolishness, and that's why we are here as a country.
Okay. Interesting. Mora, is it true that you're not different, you're just new?
Sorry?
Is it true what Mukaya is saying, that the young people are not different, they're just new? They think in English, act in mother tongue. And then they're still as ethnic as they were before. So all this sloganeering that the young people came up with, partyless, formless, leaderless, tribeless, it's just hot air, to use Supreme Court language.
As a young person, I wish I could say that is not true. But I cannot do that, because ideally that is what is happening. What we are saying is not what we are doing. We are saying A and acting Z. Ideally, we are speaking two different languages, just like he has said. But in our defense, I feel like Kenya is not a full electocracy, like she said. But I'm afraid it's starting to show signs of that, in that we're having elections, but the results are very questionable. The results are very doubtful. And we're having things like state resources benefiting the ruling party and all.
Are they doubtful simply because they are close numbers, or simply because, or emotionally? You know, there's also that perception that because you're emotionally affected, you feel that your candidate did not win. When, for example, in Malava, the difference is about 1,000 votes. That's a very close call. Depending on who's speaking, you might think that the results are questionable, but is there any credible evidence that they are questionable?
I think they're doubtful when it comes to public trust, in that if we, there is a way we can vote, and we all know, I don't know, voting is an individual decision and it is very private, but there is a way you all can vote and see we are voting for Trevor and Trevor is going to win. And we don't see the effort of Trevor's opponent. We don't see why Trevor's opponent would win over Trevor.
And then he wins.
And then he wins.
Yeah.
So now we are not saying that Trevor's opponent was not supposed to win, but we are doubting how did Trevor's opponent win? How come he got there? And I'd also like to say, he said that that is a vote of confidence for President William Ruto. I wouldn't call it a vote of confidence. I'd like to call it it is a confident mess for us in 2027. In that, yes, but I feel like it can be corrected. The whole problem is, for me, I'd blame IEBC. In that, I feel like IEBC needs to stamp more authority. It needs to show us the eye in IEBC, independent. It needs to work independently. It needs to set its own rules. Like, for example, you see when it was fining candidates, I feel like for such a case, candidates should have been eliminated, not fined. If they should have been disqualified. If somebody is not behaving according to the electoral standards, I feel like they need to be disqualified.
Would that build confidence or break it? Because remember, these were the two top contenders.
Yeah.
The one who came number 1 and number 2. What would the electorate say if IEBC decides, unilaterally declares that these two are not running? Wouldn't that be a recipe for chaos in itself?
The thing is, Trevor, if we put standards and say these are the standards that we've put in place, and somebody does not meet those standards and we disqualify them, I don't feel like that is something wrong. That is nothing wrong. Because
practically, that would be a disaster.
You did not
step.
meet the standards. Ideally, you didn't meet the standards.
Okay.
Even in real life, when you don't meet the standards, there's nothing we can do about it. You either raise your bar or you go. So I feel like for very messy things that candidates were doing, IEBC should have chosen to disqualify some of the candidates if they were bringing problems, instead of things like fining them. That would have solved maybe some of the violence issues that we're having right now.
All right, okay.
Thank you.
Is this a vote of confidence for President William Ruto?
No. Trevor, when we come here, we also need to be very objective, notwithstanding our political affiliations. Some of us sell our political parties and political affiliations everywhere we go, and that's very unfortunate. Sometimes we come here because very few of us get these opportunities to speak about these issues on national televisions. And we probably, in one way or another, speak for other young people like us. So it's just in order that we be objective and probably sell the interest of the young people, the group that we fall in, more than political parties.
Is politics ever objective?
And be objective.
Is it ever objective in any way?
It should be, and that is what some of us are fighting for. Because again, we cannot stick somewhere that is bad just because we're already there and we cannot change everything. And that is the problem we have with some people who are supporting the current regime. They suffer from something called sunk cost fallacy. People like Marco Uko, they suffer from sunk cost fallacy. It's like they've supported the wrong thing for so deep that they cannot get back, they cannot retreat. And so they're saying, wacha tu tuende nalo. It doesn't matter what happens. You just support. So whether they do good or bad, you don't care now, because there's been so much investment in terms of your energy, time, and emotions that you don't want to correct the wrong. But I want to invite them. I think that two of them are speaking for the government. I want to invite them to come back this other side. We still have an opportunity to correct what we have. And our future is longer than the future of those who are in government right now. Can we focus on what benefits us more than what benefits those that lead these parties? It's very unfortunate that we are celebrating about 20 to 40% voter turnout and saying this is a vote of confidence to somebody. Imagine about between 60 to 80% of the voices of Kenyans have not been represented. And we are here saying that this is a vote of confidence.
Where were they?
Can we think about how to ensure that these people actually have a reason to come and vote? Where were they? I said before, Trevor, you cannot just come out to vote. We are not voting instruments. We are not voting tools. We vote something that is worth voting for. we vote something that is worth voting for. And it is in order that even politicians and leaders sometimes think about what the Mwananchi, who are the electorate, think and what they want, rather than just sauntering themselves and trying to push themselves for position, even where it is not working. I think the by-elections were very unfair on the side of any other person who was not supported by the ruling party.
Hold on one second, okay? I'll come for you to clear your thoughts. Let's cross over to Magarini. I think there's some results being announced. Maybe not the final, but let's listen in.
Furaha Chengo 0, Samuel Kombe 0, valid votes cast 166. Registered voters 370. Rejected ballot papers 6. Objected to ballot papers 0. Disputed votes 0. Valid votes cast 166. Shakahola Primary School, polling station 1 of 1. Sarah Wahito 0. Amos Katana 5. Emmanuel Kitsao 0. Hamadi Chadi 2. Stanley Karisa 169. Harrison Garama 144. Jacob Temo 0. John Sulubu 0. Furaha Chengo 0. Samuel Kombe 0. Valid votes cast 320. Registered voters 680. Rejected ballot papers 1. Rejection objected to ballot papers 0. Disputed votes 0. Valid votes cast 320. PCA Bombi Primary School. Sarah Wahito 0. Amos Katana 1. Emmanuel Kitsao 0. Hamadi Chadi 1. Stanley Karisa 13. Harrison Garama 109. Jacob Temo 0. John Sulubu 0. Furaha Chengo 0. Samuel Kombe 0. Valid votes cast 124. Registered voters 307. Rejected ballot papers 0. Rejection objected to ballot papers 0. Disputed votes 0. Total number of valid votes cast 124. Ziwani Primary School. Wahito 0. Amos Katana 0. Emmanuel Kitsao 0. Hamadi Chadi 0. Stanley Karisa 7. Harrison Garama 81. Jacob Temo 1. Marsha John Sulubu 0. Furaha Chengo 1. Samuel Kombe 1. Valid votes cast 91. Registered voters 223. Rejected ballot papers 1. Rejection objected to ballot papers 0. Disputed votes 0. Total valid votes cast 91. Majengo Primary School. Wahito 0. Amos Katana 0. Emmanuel Kitsao 0. Hamadi Chadi 1. Stanley Karisa 80. Harrison Garama 49. Jacob Otieno 0. Jacob Temo 0. John Sulubu 0. Furaha Chengo 0. Samuel Kombe 0. Valid votes cast 130. Registered voters 261. Rejected ballot papers 0. Rejection objected to ballot papers 0. Disputed votes 0. Total valid votes cast 130. Mfulani Primary School. Wahito 0. Amos Katana 0, Emmanuel Kitsao 0, Hamadi Chadi 0, Stanley Kenga 108, Harrison Garama 45, Jacob Temo 0, John Sulubu 0, Furaha Chengo 0, Nzai Samuel Kombe 0, number of valid votes cast 153. Total number of registered voters 249. Rejected ballot 0. Rejection objected to 0. Disputed votes 0. Valid vote cast 153. Baoni Primary School, Wahito 0, Amos Katana 0, Emmanuel Kitsao 1, Hamadi Chadi 0, Stanley Karisa 41, Harrison Garama 25, Jacob Temo 1, John Sulubu 0, Furaha Chengo 0, Samuel Kombe 0. Total number of valid votes cast is 68. Total registered voters 103. Rejected ballot papers 1. Rejection objected to ballot paper 0. Disputed votes 0. Valid votes cast 68. Shakadulo Primary School, Wahito 1, Amos Katana 2, Emmanuel Kitsao 1, Hamadi Chadi 1, Kenga Stanley Karisa 59, Harrison Garama 163, Jacob Temo 1, John Sulubu 0, Furaha Chengo 0, Samuel Kombe 1, valid votes cast 229. Total number of registered voters 532, rejected ballot papers 6, rejection objected to ballot paper 0, disputed votes 0, valid votes cast 229. This is Ulaya Primary School. Wahito 0, Amos Katana 0, Emmanuel Kitsao 1, Hamadi Chadi 0, Stanley Karisa 20, Harrison Garama 124, Jacob Temo 1, John Sulubu 0, Furaha Chengo 0, Samuel Kombe 1, valid votes cast 147, registered voters 391, rejected ballot papers 2, rejection objected to ballot papers 0, disputed votes 0, valid votes cast 147.
Live updates there from Magarini, where they're giving the election results of per polling station. There are about 193 of them. Will take you there when they declare the final results for that electoral position that is up for grabs. Watukayo, you're finishing your thoughts on this,
yes,
saying that this is not it's not a show of confidence for UDA in 2027.
Thank you, Trevor. And I was saying, if you look at it, it was very unfair for anyone who is not on the side of the ruling party, because if you look at the kind of investment that the ruling party put in, having even a sitting deputy president campaigning for some of these candidates, it's very unfair. Someone who should be uniting the nation, he should be deputizing the president in uniting the nation, and should be serving every Kenyan, and then you go somewhere and you express, you know, your interest and say we are supporting so and so, and he's quoting so many names. I think for me, we have a long way to go, and it's a point to learn from. It's also not in order to assume that the people of Kenya, especially those from the constituencies where by-elections happened, are very clueless that they do not know whom they were voting for. You cannot tell me someone voted for their MCA and they were voting for the president. That's very uncalled for. It's like we are assuming they don't know what they are doing. People don't know what they are doing. They're just voting. People know what they're doing. If someone voted for a UDA candidate and they won, they actually intended to vote for that UDA candidate. And there are people who also voted for other candidates. If you look at, I mean the declared results, I think UDA has only won, of the 6 constituencies, they have won, I think 3, not all of them. And of course the senatorial. And of the 17 wards, they've only won 3. So if you are telling me it's a vote of, actually, if we take an aggregate of all those positions, it's 6 plus 17, 23 plus 1, 24. Out of the 24, they have won 6 plus 1, that's 7.
Now, the numbers are still coming through, so some of them have still not
The
been
numbers
declared,
are coming.
So we will know, we will know at the end of the day.
Yeah, we will know at the end of the day.
It's not fair to give an assessment now. Because the
But
numbers
for
are
the
still
MP positions, we've already seen what's happening. And someone might want to assume that you see, but let me not speak for them. Trevor, what I'm saying, what I'm saying is that this is not a vote of confidence for the current regime. People voted for their particular representatives, and that's in order. I actually congratulate them. But we have to be alive to many things, like having campaign financing, which the government candidates, or rather the UDA candidates, had a lot of money, right, to use for their campaigns. They had all the influence. They had deputy president and prime cabinet secretary and even speaker of the National Assembly campaigning for some of these candidates. Actually, I wanted to point out that we are at the barrel of the bottom, seeing a sitting speaker of the National Assembly campaigning for a candidate and saying this is their preferred candidate. A candidate whom, if they won, and I've seen they've won, will be going before him and debating issues. Do you think then this speaker is actually going to be neutral? They're not going to be neutral. Okay. We already know where they lie, and that points to to our institutions and how rotten they are, and how the parliament is not doing its work of oversight.
But is it just the people? Because out of the 6, you can tell there were 6 parliamentary positions. That is a member of the National Assembly. Yeah. About 4 of them are already been declared, and somehow, depending on how you look at it, it's somehow heading the broad-based direction. Bere North, UDA. Malava, UDA. Kasipul, ODM. Ugunja, ODM. You don't see a pattern there. We're still waiting for Magarini as well, which has not been declared, and Banisa.
Are we talking about broad-based or UDA?
Is it different for you?
It is different for me. If you look at Magarini...
But is it different for the people? Because this is what Mokaya was saying earlier on, that we think in English but act in mother tongue.
No, it's fine. I think those who think this is not the case are the people who think in English and act in mother tongue. Because
so if you look at these elections, and I was telling you the numbers there, because they're up to 16. In fact, some of them, like the member of National County Assembly for Kariobangi North, is 16 candidates.
Yes.
They still pick the ones with the biggest political parties.
Exactly.
So it's not that the people did not have an option.
They did. Now, here's the thing. Let's talk, for example, in Magarini, and I think there's also a ward in Kajiado.
Yeah.
Where we had both candidates from both UDA and ODM. All right? So what does that tell you? If we had an agreement that there's a broad-based, then they should have agreed and said, look, because we are both in government and we are forming the broad-based government, why don't we agree on a particular candidate? But they still fielded their different candidates. Okay. So that means there's nothing like broad-based. It's just broad-based in the heads of people who are celebrating and thinking that the sitting government or the youth sitting party needs the support of ODM, and so they will do anything and everything to soothe them so that they get the support of the ODM. Right. I don't think that is going to happen because, anyway.
Okay, Cynthia, are we simply burying our heads in the sand here? That the writing is on the wall and everybody can see. That the people, the more things change, the more they remain the same.
The more things change, the more they remain the same.
Yeah.
Trevor, I think people who know what they are doing should also know how to do it. And how to do it in this case is by voting. Voting is a civic responsibility of every Kenyan. Even if you do not find a reason to vote, please go and vote for the main reason that you will be the one who will be complaining the loudest when other people will be in government. And I think we are getting it wrong. And that's the sole reason why there needs to be a lot of civic education as we head towards 2027, because the same things you're complaining about for the last 3 years until 2027. After 2027, we will still be complaining about the same things. Yet we have an opportunity in our voters' card to go and change the things that we want to change. And I am sorry to say, if this trend continues like this, William Ruto is winning in 2027 again. That's the hard truth we have to accept. Because number one, young people are vocal a lot. And I began by saying that there's no polling station on social media. The hype we see on social media, when it comes to the real voting, it is not we, it is I. The ideologies that I want. I am a recipient. As a young person, young people are recipients of the very many ills that we see in the society today. Young people are educated, they are unemployed. If they are employed, they are underemployed. You get that? And young people are recipients of most of these challenges that we see. A failed healthcare system, a failed education system, we experience most of those challenges. And young people actually form the largest of the population, which means that if we wanted things to be done the right way, we will be on the front line showing people how to do it right. And number one thing, please, if you are a young person and you want change for this country, go and get a voter's card. And that's not even enough. In 2027, go and vote. Don't come out and cry the loudest when everybody will be crying and you're crying like them and you did not vote. The trajectory of politics in this country is that, of course, politics is expensive. Also, elections are expensive. And so young people are limited by things like age. Older people will be saying, you're a young person, you do not have the right experience, what will you be coming to tell us? And that is why we have old people voting for old people, and when a young person comes, they're likely not to vote for them because they think like, you've not been there long enough, so you don't know how things are done.
Not everywhere, though. In Kasipul, Boyd Were is only 27.
Kasipul was fronted by a party, and that is why when my brother said that for UDA candidates who've won, they've actually won it for William Ruto, which means that if Boyd Were went alone, would he be elected as the Kasipul MP? If he went alone without the fronting of the party and without the investment and the machinery that the party invested in Kasipul, for Boyd Were to be elected, would he still have won the elections? So politics is influenced by a lot of things, and one of them is the existing political systems. And the existing political systems have to do with the people that are already there, the people that are well established in the political system. And again, politics, in the recent times, we've seen also politics of inheritance. Now, because I'm a son of a politician, if my father dies, I'm likely to inherit. That also goes for cabinet positions. It's a reward system. People rewarding their people simply because, and that is why that looks like continuing. It's a continuity of politics of inheritance, where people inherit because their fathers were. It's a dynasty, some sort of a dynasty collection. Young people have to do much more than this. If you do not have faith in the IEBC, you had a chance to test the IEBC in these by-elections. If we didn't get it right, we're also going to get it wrong in 2027. And therefore, IEBC also has a task going towards 2027. They have a task to do a lot of civic education and voter education to make voters to know their rights, to know that the only way you can change a system, the only actually constitutional way. Yeah. The others are unconstitutional. Protest and everything else is just an expression of how bad we feel about the governance. But the only constitutional way is by voting. Okay. You want change for this country? Be a voter. Be responsible. Be a civically responsible citizen of this country. Okay.
Yes. Nyabuto, there was something that Lutalala decried as a commissioner, saying we need to change the national psyche. How does that change, and what needs to change, in your view? As you also react to what your fellow panelists have said.
All right. Where do I start from? I think a lot has been said.
Yeah, from the confidence in the president to this change of the national psyche.
I think these by-elections were a supreme battle. It was a battle of political parties. It was a battle of broad-based versus opposition. And if you see a deputy president go down to Mbere and even chant things like Wamudende, Wamudende, and, you know, making it a slogan, it means he had to prove to his constituents that he is the kingpin there. He had to disrupt things and ensure that someone like Rigathi Gachagua is deemed, I don't know, do I call it
outsider of some sort?
Yeah, just mtu wa kelele, mtu wa vitisho. The same thing happened in Malava. You see a whole assistant to the president, for lack of a better word, go down there and fully campaign and fully campaign and fully campaign. It was more of a supremacy battle. You see empowerment forums in Kasipul, where they are spending more than money that is supposed to be put in capitation for schools so that children are able to enjoy free education. Wanaenda kupeana 30 million, was it 30 million? That's a lot of money for a constituency. That is something that can change, you know, even SHA and all those things. It can improve a few things in government. And it was more of a supremacy battle. You see, Baba had just passed away, and you know they're on the ground really pushing for Boyd Were, a very young boy who barely understands maybe even governance, barely understands what is his role as a politician or as an MP. What is he supposed to do? He's just there as a decorative to ensure that that someone who is independent like Aroko can take up the mantle. We have a long way to go. When I see young people say, even Gen Z, I'm a Gen Z, say we are partyless, we are leaderless. These things, and you are not, no one is able to take you seriously. Even when you go out there and you even ask former politicians or even our godfathers to help you with funding, mtu atakuuliza umetoka chama gani? And I want to tell young people, join political parties. Yes, it seems very impossible. Yes, political parties have failed you. But there are political parties that are restructuring and creating good structures for the youth. For me, I'm a member of Jubilee Party. I can confidently say, without fear of favor or without anything, and say that the Jubilee Party has really put up a very good and elaborate youth structure that it gives me the confidence to say that maybe in 2027, I can be able to stand up and push for my vote and have the young people say, let's put this person as this, maybe they're going for Senate or women rep, let's push for this person. I think it's high time we did have honest conversations. It's very hard for someone to really be pushed for independently. We even see the independent candidate from somewhere in Western, I think it is Bungoma, being pushed for by Natembeya. If this person was not able to identify a godfather like Natembeya, he'd probably be in the pits right now. It's high time we as the young people joined political parties, voiced our opinions in political parties, and changed the narrative. If we sit on the internet, continue typing, tukisema, oh, Gen Z power, sisi ndio nini, tutakuwa vifaranga vya computer, the way Baba used to say it, will be lost, and the status quo will not, the older people will not care. Hawatajali, watasema vijana tu ni kelele, weke hapo tuwape 500 tuwatulize. But if we take part in the decision-making process, join the decision-making table and air our grievances and say, this is how we want it to be done. If you're not able to do it for us, we'll go, probably form our own political party and push for our own agendas.
Okay, Mark, finally.
Yeah. I've been told that reference term that some of us suffer from. I think I also have a reference term for people like Joshua Kai and some of my panelists here. They suffer from something called political schizophrenia. People who live so far from reality. They say things like you see on that screen. In 2027, this is just a demonstration of what will be happening. Numbers will be scrolling on that screen. They will still resist the reality that President Ruto is going to win. Now, when I say that this is an affirmation vote, a confidence vote to the current regime, it's not also downplaying that people also, you know, voting for the candidates whom they believed. But by-elections are a proxy, especially when it is midterm wise towards the general election. It is an indication of what is going to happen in 2027, and this has a past reference. If you looked and before 2022 election, the previous broad-based arrangement between Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga, why didn't they win in Kiamba? They didn't win also there was also a by-election in the coast. I can't remember where particularly, and it was an indication that they are not also most likely not going to win in the 2022 election. So I want to urge my young people, and also even urge those who will be vying in 2027. All politics is local. All these they created a delusion, or the ballooning within social media. Even if you check on social media, you'll barely know who Ndakwa is. But the audience whom he addresses on a daily basis, the locals, are the ones who turn up. If you take your phone and look at the people who turned up to vote, they are women. In fact, I would urge those who are vying that women are the most loyal voters for anybody to go and search for. The young people, I think there is need for more civic education, for more mobilization, and for them to register. Finally, I would want to give flowers to the Deputy President, Kithure Kindiki. He was an underdog that was highly underestimated, but he has been able to deliver. And I want to urge all young people to kindly join the UDA party. We do not live in delusions. We do not live in idealistic politics. We win elections.
Let's leave
We
it
win
there for
elections.
now.
We will win in 2027.
Yeah,
and
gentlemen.
the broad-based arrangement will continue winning.
Thank
and
you.
we will continue
Gentlemen and
winning.
ladies, thank
We
you
do
so
not
much
win
for
on
your
social
time.
media. Continue.
That's
Join
where we
the
leave it
UDA
for now.
party.
Thank you
Live in
very, very
reality.
much. Asante sana. Coming up next is Ben Sue and DJ Gigi on Level Up on Friday. Thank you all for making time and speaking to us this morning. Bye for now.